Hi everybody, this is the Chapters Book Club next section of chapters from page 306 to 364 and that is chapter 58 until the end of 70. It's going to be very short because I'm not feeling very well today. I've only just got out of bed, which as it is 10 past 11 here is quite late. So you'll have to bear with me, and I hope you can hear me okay. Basically at 58 they're Elder and Amy are looking at the history files on Godspeed in the recorder hall, and Amy has realised that Ed, who was one of the two men that put her into the cryogenic chamber at the very beginning, was actually one of the first people on Godspeed, and he raised his family completely on Godspeed itself. So she looks at it just as a bit of fun to see if Eldest is actually related to Ed, and it turns out that Ed was, as far as records go to, he had 13 generations, which obviously if Godspeed was only meant to be in the air for 300 years, there should definitely not have been 13 generations, and that was only as far as the plague, which was a good 100 years, I think it was, before, because after that they didn't keep, like a good few hundred years, sorry, because they didn't keep records after that, so goodness knows how many generations there are now. 58, Eldest comes and starts shouting at them because they've been looking at the sort of not forbidden files, but because obviously he's getting very close to the truth. So Eldest shouts at him, and Elder actually stands up for himself on foot Amy and demands to know the truth and what really happened during the plague. So a bit of Amy's influence, I think, on being a bit stronger and standing up for himself is starting to really rub off. So he basically says to Eldest, I want to know exactly what's been going on. And Eldest obviously takes to it badly and still tries to order him around. And at 61 they do leave, and Amy is left in the recorder hall, and Orion suddenly appears. Now she thought she'd seen him in the background originally, but he never showed himself because he said Eldest was there and he didn't get on with him. Now he never seems to be there when Eldest is there or Doc is there. Orion never seems to be in the same vicinity, and I think that's very suspect. And I'm thinking maybe because that cryptic conversation I had at the beginning about is he dead, isn't he dead, maybe this Orion is actually the other Elder, I'm thinking, and that is why he they think he's dead, because they don't see him, because he hides somehow. And maybe just Elder, Doc and Eldest never go into the recorder hall very often or something like that, and he's just never been seen. So that is basically what I think of that, and he is still dodgy, as I said in my first video. In the same chapter, Amy, as she's going back to the hospital, she sees Steeler getting dropped off by her family, which was the lady who looked after her in the beginning when there was the big crowd. And Steeler basically is being dropped off because she's old by her family. And Amy promises to take her up to the 4th floor herself, and she does, and she witnesses what happens to the elderly on Godspeed, and that is basically that Doc kills them. Not in a nasty way, not in a painful way, but at the end of the day he kills them. They're not ready to die. Steeler was definitely not ready for die. She didn't seem to want to go anywhere. She was quite happy. But no, Doc killed her. Yes, it was a happy moment she had just before, but she's still dead. So that was just wrong. And Amy found that really, really disturbing, and I have to agree, it was very disturbing. 62, Elder and Eldest basically argue about what was the plague, and Eldest finally admits that, yeah, there wasn't actually a plague, it was a war, caused by differences according to, and discord according to Eldest, and when everyone had killed each other, basically what happened was the basically what happened was, eldest... Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Basically what happened, there was a war, and when there was only a few people left, what happened was the eldest at the time became, I think it must have been the strongest man in the family, something like that, and he realised that the people who had survived were people with families and something to live for. So he decided, right, we'll have no more wars, because we'll have one generation every so often. That's when the season started and things, and we'll have one elected person, which is elected by being the oldest born child in that season, and basically that's how it started. So there was no plague, no thousands of people died. They actually died at their own hands at the end of the day, so you can kind of understand why they've got that thing about discord and stuff, but still I prefer if people were normal. But I suppose claustrophobia may affect them in some way and have made them all slightly insane. Anyway, let's have a look. '64. Elder's back in the learning centre, and basically he's been told that the ship is behind schedule by a long way, and he's being shown where the actual and he's also been told about the actual hormones in the water, and how it controls everybody, it controls the season, it controls everything. And Elder doesn't really like that. He thinks it's drugs, and it's really is affecting the people, so he doesn't think it should be continued, and he would prefer to rule without it. But Elder doesn't agree, basically, which, does Elder ever agree with anything? And Elder explains that if they need artists, or if they need musicians, or if they need someone to write literature, basically what they do is they add a bit of artistic something in, and they'll give them the inhibitor pills, which stop the actual drugs in the water from taking effect. They counteract them. So that was basically what happened there. When Elder comes back, he goes to the goes to see Amy, who's crying about Steela, and how awful it was watching her die when she wasn't ready. And basically, she takes comfort in him, she hugs him, and Elder's quite surprised by that, and he finds he wants to protect her, and he wants to look after her, and things like that, which is quite nice. And then she also realises she forgot her parents, she hasn't thought about them all day, and she feels like she needs to run down and get them, and Elder has to tell her to calm down and relax. What else happens? Oh yes, they keep trying to connect the dots, but they're failing. They can get connections with all of them, but not all at once, and not one really that connects them all. So they still haven't really got far. 68, basically Harley's annoyed because he's been there all day, watching and waiting and things like that, to make sure no one gets killed, and he's been kind of forgotten, which he in a way has. So Elder promises that he'll sit down there and he'll look after everybody and make sure they're alright. But sadly, Elder falls asleep, and when he wakes up he can smell paint, I think it is, or is it an alarm? I can't remember now. Anyway, he runs and he knows something's wrong, he can sense it, so he runs to find Harley, and when he does, he gets to the hatch door and finds Harley's on the wrong side of the hatch, and it's sealed so he can't actually get to him. And Harley turns around just as he's going to press the final button, and he presses it, it opens, and he goes out into space and dies. And that's just really sad, because I love Harley. I thought Harley was really, really nice. I just couldn't get enough of him. I thought he was just really sweet, especially when you had him in comparison to Luth and to Eldest, and to the dodgy Orion, and when you can't trust Doc and things like that. There's just so many people that you can't trust, that finding one that you can is just really, really nice. So I really liked him. I'm really sorry. 69 is basically Amy. She's found out a kind of connection, and that's that they were all in some way connected to military, be it the US Marines or warfare specialists, that kind of thing. So she's found that there is a connection, and she thinks that she was turned off by mistake because her father was actually into sort of the military and that sort of thing. So she thinks when they've been turning off her, they've turned off her by mistake, and it should have been her father, which obviously worries her because she's right next door to him, so that means he's still a target. And then she gets given the actual the painting, or the last painting that Harley did by Orion. Now I don't like this bit because it shows Orion is dodgy, like I thought all along, because he says he gave it to Orion, Harvey gave the picture to him, when Orion gave him wire. Now that shows that Orion was down there, somehow he got down there, and that he gave Harley, gave him wire to help him get out. And that's just inexcusable, really, that he did that, because he knew that he was going to kill himself. Because why would an artist need wire at that point, and why would they need it down the cryo chambers? I think he knew exactly what Harley was going to do. I don't know, I can't prove it obviously, but I think Orion knew exactly what Harley was planning. And so he died. And I think in a way Orion's hands. But he gives it to Amy, and Amy doesn't realise he's dead yet. But then in chapter 70, Elder comes back, and she gets told, and obviously she's very, very upset. Which she would be. I think as much as she'd only just met him, I think she was good friends with Harley. So I think that was why. That made her so sad. And they look to see, basically, who's been on the floor, on the level, see if they've killed anyone, that sort of thing, just to see where Elder stays and things like that, and that's where it ends. Because what had happened was, while Elder was asleep, I remember now, they'd gone along and marked all the doors with an X, because obviously, this is why I think it was Orion, because obviously Elder was asleep, so he couldn't open the cryo chambers because all the alarms would go off and he'd be waking up. So Elder's asleep there, so what can he do? He can help Harley by giving him wire, great, and he can also paint the doors. And I just think it's Orion, because he was down there to give wire to Harley, and Harley had paint down there, so it made it easy for him to mark all the doors once he'd given the wire, and Harley was concentrating on that more than anything else. And then when Harley opened the door, Elder would have known, and that Elder would have known, and that woke him up. And as we can tell by this plan, is that he doesn't actually, when they're looking through the Y-Coms locators, there is no recollection of Orion. And I think it's that scar again. I think he's got a scar there which is stopping him from being located, because he's got a scar down here, and it would make sense because he meant to have a scar on the thumb, the one when they did the fingerprint. So if Orion has a scar on here, chances are he may have one on here. If he's been in an accident, especially if it's one that they think he died from. So that's just that. You may think differently, but just let me know. I'm really sorry this is slow and boring, probably. I'm not feeling well, I've got like no energy, but I just wanted to get one up anyway. I can do a later one, a better one at a later date. I just wanted to get this up for you. So I hope you all enjoy it, the book club so far. So let me know what you think, and what you think is going to happen in the final part. I think Nicole's doing that one, but just let me know, and let us all know what you think and how we can improve our videos and things like that. So thank you very much.